for you. Today's your lucky day. We're doing Byte Sized Insights, a little tech segment here on What's on Your Mind to help you with questions. We have a pro with us today from High Point Networks. They sponsor Byte Sized Insights right here on What's on Your Mind. Dean Putnam is here, who is a sales engineering manager at High Point Networks. Dean, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Glad to have you on the program today. So we're going to tackle phone systems today. And let's start, first of all, if folks in our audience are managing or owning their business and kind of wondering about their current phone system, how do they begin evaluating the system they're currently using?
Well, it's typically a question of feature functionality. Is it doing what they want to do? Do they have the needs that they want to accomplish to communicate with their constituent base or their clientele? So that's number one. The second thing is the manageability of it. How easy is it for them to keep running it? Do they have the proper staff on board? And you know, are they able to keep it up and going is really the bigger question. And then finally, you know, what does their budget look like, and what are their future plans, whether it's for expansion or growth, or just looking at new features that the phone system can do.
So sometimes when you have something, you don't realize what you're missing out on. And you mentioned some of the feature functionality that would be available that you don't have. So tantalize me a little bit. What are some examples of the features you could have with a cloud-based system?
Right on. So, you know, as you know, there was this little thing called COVID that came around a couple of years back, and it kind of sent everybody home for a while. So mobility is number one, the ability to kind of take a call on any device, anywhere, anytime. A lot of your premise-based or the backroom phone systems that are out there today are typically accommodating that now, but they're still a little immature on that, whereas your cloud-based systems are really built to be mobile. Secondly is SMS text messaging. Unfortunately, today we've got folks that don't like to talk on the phone and would rather send and receive text. I even have friends of mine that won't take a call from me, but they'll answer a text message. And it's a new way for a lot of businesses and organizations to communicate, again, with their constituents or clientele. Web fax, electronic faxing is now somewhat of an inherent feature in a lot of these cloud systems, so we can get rid of those rotten fax machines. Fax doesn't seem to ever go away. And then there's things we can do with premise-based systems that are add-ons to it, like call recording and call reporting. Those things are generally included with a cloud-based system.
All right, interesting. By the way, I have that problem too. My daughter says that when I text her or I call her, she doesn't answer. Then she texts back, "What do you need?" I'm like, "For you to answer the phone." And
Right.
Well, I don't use my phone for that, Dad. You didn't know that, huh? Yeah.
Well, remember, you know, those young kids can multitask, so a lot of times they can contextually communicate with you while they're in a meeting or on another call. So it is a handy feature to have, but some of us old guys struggle with it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so you sell me on the features of a switch to a cloud-based phone system. Let's talk a little bit about the process. First of all, is it lengthy?
Not necessarily. In fact, if due diligence is done and everything's in place, in theory, you could have it for small to medium business, say 10 to 75 users up in a day if you had all your ducks in a row. But there are any of a number of things that will drag that out. So whether I'm doing an on-premise system, that phone system in your back room, or moving to cloud, there's still things that we have to still take care of. We have to build your main call flows coming into your company, any hunt groups or ring groups, your night day services and any recordings that go along with them, your weather greetings, your holiday greetings. And when moving to cloud-based systems, a lot of times reporting the numbers away from your phone company and getting rid of that expense for you and moving them, and also becoming your telephone system provider. So a lot of those things, if due diligence has been done up front, the actual cutover is nominal. It's pre-built, and when the day comes, even if we can't move the numbers over, we can call forward them. So in an emergency situation, we get it up and running. But normally it's a 45 to 60 day turnaround, depending on the resources of the company that you're working with.
A mailbag question for you here. We're talking, by the way, with Dean Putnam, Sales Engineering Manager at High Point Networks, for the Byte Sized Insights segment here on What's on Your Mind. And this listener wants to know, we're planning an expansion soon. Should I wait until we actually expand, or would it be better to start now and have the cloud-based phone system implemented before we actually
Right.
expansion?
It really depends on the company and how organized you are from a policy and procedure standpoint. But in a lot of cases, it's sometimes better to have the phones in place before an expansion. Just it's one less thing to worry about because you're going to have a bunch of logistics to deal with at that time, whether it's site expansion in buildings or just expanding the network out with switches and servers and wireless, et cetera. But it's really up to you when you want to do it. The biggest advantage is because we're moving to a platform that's any device, anywhere, anytime, even though the phones may not be up and running at the Expanse location, your phones are running. People are carrying with them on their bodies with cell phones and tablets, et cetera.
Interesting. When you look at the benefits of a cloud-based system, do you have to be a big company to realize most of the benefits, or is it small companies, large companies, doesn't really matter? The benefits benefit everybody, no matter the size of the business. What advice?
It almost doesn't matter. It's a little bit tricky when you're dealing with a large enterprise company of 500, 1,000 or more endpoints, simply because it's built on a per user, per month expense or subscription. So sometimes the total cost of ownership there can get a little bit skewed over time versus buying something up front over time. That doesn't mean that it's not doable for large companies. In fact, we're seeing most of those companies switch to that or look into it at the very least. Absolutely, with smaller and medium companies, and I'm talking about anywhere from 10 users all the way up to maybe 150 to 200 users, it's ideal for that. Not only the ease of management, the quick switch if you need that, but also just that feature functionality we keep talking about. From a price perspective, what we're looking to do is get into a situation where what you pay on your phone lines today and what your cost originally for a phone system, or if you're planning to buy a new phone system, that we're comparing that against what your subscription is over time, and see if we can get those two things to match pretty closely.
Let's talk a little bit about the business that has customers in a large area, multiple states, versus more localized. What are the pluses and minuses there?
Right. We've talked about one of the features being mobility. I mean, that's an obvious one. So not only don't we need the physical backroom equipment at all of these sites or offices, branches, if you will, wherever you have them throughout North America, say, but we can also accommodate that single user that you just don't want to lose, but they're fixed on living in Arizona and they're just not going to sit in the office in Minneapolis or wherever your headquarters is, right? So that's easily accommodated. But we also remove your long distance charges, unlimited calling. And in a lot of cases, that's all US, Canada, Puerto Rico, if you will. It really depends on the platform you're looking at. So certainly the breadth and the further out that you get, it becomes a bit of a logistical nightmare if you're doing premise-based systems, simply because you've got to put a box at each site to kind of accommodate. Here, everything's in the cloud, everything's centralized, some would say on a single pane of glass for somebody to manage. And yet each one of your users is their independent site. We can build night-day services and call flows for each site that's unique to that particular office. And then lastly, everybody in the enterprise has pervasive presence. I can look and see, hey, I can tell you're on the phone. I can even see if you're away from your desk or in a meeting because it looks at your calendar. And just at a glance, I know that the options for me communicating with you are either open or they're somewhat limited, or I'm just not going to catch you at all. So in some cases, it even increases the efficiency of your workers just not wasting time trying to track people down.
Or you talk more and more about those benefits and you say, hey, I get it's a change, right? It's something different. But we're going to do something new. But it sounds to me like the benefits far outweigh the whatever hassles that have to happen in a transition, huh?
Yeah, they seem to be, but we still have to focus on the fundamentals, which is the big three that we always talk about, which is reliability, security, and traditional functionality. So we want you to experience a similar level or better reliability than you have with the current phone system you have. A lot of folks have had a phone system for 10, 15 years. Phone company's been rock solid. Everything stays up and running. They come in the morning. They don't worry about it. They pick the handset up. There's dial tone there. It's kind of a God-given right, so to speak, that they have dial tone. Now we're moving them to the cloud. There's some fear and doubt over whether that's going to be reliable. So number one, we need to make sure that we're at least at that same level of reliability, say a 5 nines, a level of reliability. Secondly, security. We're moving everything to the cloud. So we're eliminating it from that perimeter that you've built of network security around your server room for firewalls and antivirus and things. And we're putting it out in a public space. How secure is that? So we need to make sure that the customer understands all the regulatory constraints that they may have to abide by, whether it's Sarbanes-Oxley or PCI or HIPAA or GILBA or whatever their respective vertical market has to meet from a regulatory standpoint. But also the idea that, can I make sure that all my data that's traversing, whether it's in motion or it's at rest on a server in the cloud, is fully encrypted and that it's going to be secure. We spend a lot of time working with our customers. I would say most groups would, just to make sure that that is a non-issue. It is an issue, but we want to make sure it's addressed. And then lastly, that, hey, you're moving my cheese. You're going to take away the phone that I've had for 10 years. I had all my speed dials set up. That one tells me if Bill's on the phone because it lights up. Am I going to lose all that because I'm going to this fancy thing? No. We're going to be able to provide most of the traditional feature functions that you had before, even though we're changing the phone model and changing to a new system. It's not that big of a jump for the folks that want to stay traditional, but it also opens the door for all the folks that want to go to something that's more mobile or runs on their computer instead of needing a desk phone on their desk.
Well, great information. Learned a lot today, and we have a lot of businesses that listen to business owners, business managers, so you're learning a lot. Thanks, Dean Putnam. Byte Sized Insights brought to you by High Point Networks. Thanks for listening. More.